Welcome to Bluecoat. My name is Marianne McQuay and I'm the head of programme here, working alongside our artistic director, Brian Biggs. It's my pleasure to welcome you here and to the work between us, Black British Artists and Exhibition Histories, the first symposium within the Black Artists and Modernism research group. It's such a privilege for Bluecoat to be able to host the first symposium and for us to be able to reflect on our own exhibition histories and also welcome back some of the artists who have shaped those exhibition histories. As we reflect on exhibition histories, we're also talking about the present and shaping the future, and Bluecoat very much wants to be part of these discussions. So thank you for bringing the symposium here. I have a very brief role, really, which is to welcome you, to indicate the exit in the event of a fire alarm, and also to explain that our galleries, which you would usually be very welcome to look round, are currently being installed. So what I propose is that right at the end of the day, for those of you who can stay on for drinks, please come down to reception and I'll take you round if you don't mind weaving round scissor lifts and crates. But these are the galleries in which Sonia Boyce showed post-capital development and in which we will show Keith Piper and Adam Farnway in the autumn. So for those of you unfamiliar with them, we'd really like to be able to take you round. That's my job done, which is mainly to keep to time. And I'm going to pass over to Sonia Boyce to really set the scene for today.
Okay, so I have to really thank, can you hear me? Am I tall enough for this? I have to congratulate Anjalie Dalal-Clayton for putting together what I think is an extraordinary programme for today, and I'm just really excited about all the papers and the discussions that are going to unfold. I also, of course, have to thank Brian Biggs and the team here at the Bluecoat for being so enthusiastic about this, kind of working with us on this project. Okay, I've got 10 minutes, so I'm going to try and be to time. So the other story, Afro-Asian Artists in Post-War Britain, was a national touring exhibition that first opened at the Hayward Gallery in 1989. And it's been the focus of the first year of this 3-year BAM, Black Artists and Modernism research project. The main premise of the other story gathered around the contribution of African and Asian artists, diasporic artists, to modernism as well as to British art. Artist and curator Rashida Reen produced what some now recognise as a groundbreaking exhibition. However, caught up in the battle to get the artists, the works, the exhibition recognised, in hindsight, with the benefit of this 30 years of time that's passed, has become apparent, at least to some of us, that some key questions around Reen's proposition have been overlooked. For me, that's how the artworks relate to modernist ideas and practices, and what difference these works have made to the broader story of 20th century art. Now, the critical reception to the Hayward show was overwhelmingly negative. Many of the reviewers were preoccupied with issues about race and racism. There was an emphasis on the way in which artists originated from elsewhere. Not only were they talking about, oh, these artists come from this place and that place, but a kind of marked difference between where this elsewhere was kind of situated and how they were different to us and here. And there have been many reviews of that show. I mean, of course, the other thing that was very relevant or very apparent in a lot of the reviews is how the reviewers were quite affronted by the accusation of art world and institutional racism. So I'm just going to read a section from Brian Sewell, who was, I suppose, the most kind of vitriolic of all of the reviewers. He says, having even no traditions of their own, or traditions so exhausted that no nourishment is to be drawn from them, these artists parrot Western visual idioms that they do not understand, and that have been exposed as silly and pretentious. That they should demand serious attention for their third-rate imitation of the white man's cliché must seem outrageous to all who care about to judge by quality. Talent in the West, or in the white West, is an extremely rare phenomenon, and most Western art is indifferent at best. I see no reason to distort the judgment that damns it so as to praise the work of artists just as bad or worse because they make a noisy business of being black. So part of the thing about looking at Brian Sewell's review is that often when people would mention Brian, they'd mention him in a very kind of joking way, in a kind of dismissive way. Oh well, nobody really pays much attention to him. But this was a year in which he was voted Critic of the Year, so one has to kind of think, well, actually, behind that derision, he was clearly being taken seriously. Even if he was voicing his opinions in a way that most felt they couldn't, he was still being taken, as I said, seriously. Now, modernism's ambition was that it could be seen as a kind of universal language. And I suppose my thinking in particular is that what has gone unrecognised in that claim is who is regarded as being able to speak the language of modernism, and who's considered not only to not understand, but also not to be able to speak in the kind of modernist terms. Who is regarded outside of that language? And for me, there is a narrative here in the story that hopefully will unfold today, where exhibition histories, which is a relatively new and burgeoning field of art historical study, still is following familiar tropes, where the contributions of Black British curatorial practices are rarely mentioned. And my hope today, and I'm sure it's going to happen, is that we will buck that trend. Okay, thank you, and I think we should hear something from Anjalie.
So it's my pleasure to introduce the morning part of the symposium, which focuses on the 1989 exhibition, The Other Story, which the keynote is also a part of. 1989 is a year of global significance, politically and socially, and the impact of the revolutionary wave of that year was somehow felt in the field of art exhibitions. The third Havana Biennial expanded the global territory of contemporary art, and the Pompidou Centre's Magicians of the Earth contributed to a radical shift in the Western art system by arguing for the universality of the creative impulse. The Other Story, which took place at London's Hayward Gallery in this same year, was similarly groundbreaking. It was the first retrospective exhibition of modernist works by British artists of African, Asian, and Caribbean descent, and was also the first attempt in an exhibition to initiate a broader and more cosmopolitan perception of British modernist art. Although The Other Story is often referenced in the historicisation of Black British art, particularly in relation to its reception by Black artists, scholars, and in the press, its position in global discourses of art is often overshadowed by a perception of the exhibition as a parochial event in art history. Such a perspective is puzzling, particularly in view of the fact that The Other Story is the most requested archive in the Hayward Art Library collection. Between 2014 and 2015, requests to consult the archive averaged at 1 per month, which for a small special collections library is unusually high. To date, inquiries to the Hayward regarding the exhibition have come from all over the world, including the United States, Russia, and Spain, with scholars consulting material for dissertations and theses on the curatorial aspects and critical reception of the exhibition. Researchers often request installation images for use in publications, and there's also been a focus on the individual artists, such as Iqbal Jeffrey and Anwar Shamsa. This morning, 4 presentations will together make clear the huge significance of The Other Story, not only in the field of Black British exhibition histories, but in the broader history of British and international art exhibitions. Dr. Lucy Steed's keynote presentation will explore the physical and intellectual curation of the exhibition to consider the relevance of its sophisticated arguments today. Professor Paul Goodwin will examine the prehistory of the exhibition and Rashida Reen's particular approach to researching and making it. Ella S. Mills will present on behalf of Dr. Sophie Orlando, who's not able to be with us today. And her paper will question how the reception of the other story established different kinds of refusal and disregard towards Black British art in the years that followed the exhibition, and also a resistance against Doreen's discourse on artistic modernities. And finally, Dr. Alice Correa will present on the Horizon Gallery's In Focus exhibitions, which were staged in response to the exclusion of young South Asian artists from the other story. Together, these 4 presentations will deepen and expand our understanding of the other story and provide a point from which we can start to position exhibitions involving Black artists at the centre of the burgeoning discourse on exhibition histories.